Anyone have parents who can never take fault or admit that they are wrong? My mom was exactly this. I lived with my mom for the first 15 years of my life and thought it was a normal thing for all parents. Even when I had hard proof that she was wrong, even in very trivial things, she just wouldn't admit it. She would find some excuse or just act like she couldn't hear my claim. I did end up moving in with my dad, and I was mind blown when he admitted when he was wrong. I could argue something with him, and he always kept it so civil and looked at both sides fairly. He even changed his mind on some ideas because he listened to what I said. It actually took some getting used to because I had never been able to sway an adult like that. Whoa, I can be right about stuff. I can know stuff. Getting out into the working world was where I first experienced that feeling. And, actually, I still secretly feel it at work on a weekly basis. It means a lot. Yep. Had a real bad falling out with my father. He still to this day never has apologized for his mistakes. He apologizes for mistakes my mother made instead. It's a bad story, so we will skip all that, but everything bad that happened is his own doing. Yeah, my pops can be a tool. Honestly can't name one thing he did for me, didn't even work, yet still wants me to be like a military man around him. Talk about setting the example. That's rough, man. I think the best we can do is be our own person and set the example for our kids. That's what I'm doing right now with my daughter. I'm doing my best to admit my faults and own my mistakes. Hopefully it doesn't affect you too much, fellow Redditor. Thanks for the encouragement, and I genuinely respect the fact that you're working every day to fix the mistakes you feel your folks made. Good luck to you as well. Me, hey dad, that was hurtful. Dad option 1, that's your opinion. Dad option 2, okay, I messed up, but you have done things like that before too. I've pretty much stopped approaching him. I strongly preferred to go to the other parent with personal matters, even since I was a kid. It's messed up and a bit weird, but I've never been comfortable around him because of the energy he radiates, of all the anger he represses, and the feelings he won't own. TBH, it wasn't until less than a year ago that I started to understand that behaviors like this and other mentally invalidating habits my parents practiced were even wrong. I grew up just thinking I was less capable than others of knowing what I'm doing or feeling. Yay. I was in class once, and my dad called non-stop and sent me a text. He never calls me much, and much less texts me, so I got worried thinking it was an emergency. When I finally answered, he starts asking me about something small I could have done when I got home. I told him I thought this was an emergency. I'm in class, to which he responds, "This is an emergency to me." A couple days later, when I tell him that what he was rude because he basically didn't consider that it was my class time and that he could have called later, he takes a long pause and then responds, "What are you talking about? I didn't send a text." I'm 35. My mother to this day will not admit or apologize for the mistreatment and downright neglect she put me through during my childhood, only blaming other people or other stuff. I see her at most once a year and around an hour at most. I only do that to appease my grandparents around holidays. Oh yeah, we don't discuss my childhood. It was awful, but she has convinced herself that it was fine. At this point, I've come to terms with what happened and have moved on. So bringing it up now would only cause her psychological harm. I'd rather end that cycle. Yes, it is extremely frustrating and honestly corrupts your entire childhood. It led me to depression and constant anxiety because I got the blame for everything. It makes you resent your parents so much. I honestly don't even know who the bad guy is anymore. When we fight, I get so mad and feel so justified in doing so, but then after I'm always the one apologizing, even when I don't feel like I'm at 100% at fault. I meant to reply to your comment, but ended up posting a completely different one. Yep, my mother does. She cannot take no for an answer unless it's from an employee of a store. Within her reasoning, she deflects blame by shifting it onto me being a problematic autistic child. She compares me to others all the time. If I correct her on something, all she does is either claim I'm wrong and try to prove me such, or just ignores what I say. She has a lot more toxic traits to her, and I swear she has some mental illness that will sadly go undiagnosed until she dies. Yes, my mother and I aren't in talking terms because of this. It all came to a head when she was getting divorced last year and was trying to get me and my bro to watch our little brothers on the weeks that she had the kids so her and her new man could go do things out of town. I get wanting to escape for a minute and stuff, but this was like every time it was her week to have them. I told her my thoughts and she blamed her ex and came up with excuse after excuse, not taking any fault for being a deadbeat. I understand that, but just know out of the time it isn't your fault, even though you feel that way. Because you have the right to get mad and angry when they don't listen to you or try to push fault onto you. Just know that, even though it's gonna be super tough, when you can get away your life is going to be amazing. That's what keeps me going. Yes. And it carries too. My mom would never ever admit she was wrong. Even when blatantly wrong, she would make some unconvincing connection. I had trouble saying I was wrong at times. Now it's kind of the opposite. If I don't feel like spending the energy, I won't even argue with people if I know I'm right. Definitely. And when I try to point out something she's done or said that upset me, I get cut off with okay, yeah, I'm always the bad guy. I'll never speak again. Or are beloved because you think you're perfect? My mom only apologizes once a year in form of a letter that's required by the school for our yearly school retreats. Never actually heard an apology from her. Every conversation with my father, hey, the sky is green, me no dad, it's blue, father, yeah, that's what I said, it's blue, that's what I said, I'm right. Yep. My mum specifically will say something towards me, and if I prove her wrong she just goes SSSH. Yes, I had to. Now I only have my mom, who is also bipolar. She screams at me if I correct her. Yeah, my mother is overall a great person, but I don't think I've ever heard her admit fault to anything. I think it's a generational problem. Every generation is less stubborn than the last. I had a parent with narcissistic personality disorder. He dead now though. Yep, both my parents and grandparents, my whole family. Let me introduce you to a sub called our Asian Parent Stories. Yep, dad is too self-righteous.